My name is Dennis Buckley, Mayor City of Beech Grove, and I would like to welcome you to a very informal town hall meeting concerning St. Francis Hospital. A couple of people I would like to introduce. To my left is Craig Wiley, our city attorney. To my right is Shannon Kenyon. Shannon is with Shrewsbury and Associates. Shannon is the engineer overseeing the St. Francis project on our behalf. And her employer, Bill Shrewsbury, is in the back. Bill, wave, stand up. It's good to see you always. Bill runs a fine company, and we're happy to use his services. And I would also like to introduce Ed Bell. Ed is on the city council. Dave Harrison. Dave is on the city council. He's here with his wife. Frank Mascari, District 20 City County Council, is here this evening. Frank has been instrumental in getting some roads paved for us. Perkins, a little work on Garstang, and we're working on Bethel and Southern Avenue, and he's working on our behalf. So Frank, we thank you for that. I want to pass on a couple things before we get into St. Francis. We're beginning our third round of paving. The wage hearing was today. It will go out for advertisement June the 2nd, and then they will open bids on June the 19th, and then the bid award is July the 2nd. And then after July the 2nd, work will begin within 45 days. The roads that are scheduled to be worked on this year is the remainder of 23rd Street. Royal Road will be completely torn out, and we're going to work on the drainage issue, and then they'll put a new road in when they're done. Buffalo Street from 17th to 18th will be redone, and also there'll be some drainage improvements in that area. The alley between 17th and 18th Street north of Main will be torn out and redone. And then the park entrance off of Sherman Drive, they are going to do some patchwork on that hill. And then just today, the DPW director put out a notice for quotes on repairs to Stave Oak Street, Buffalo, and Cleveland. So those roads will be getting some attention as well. Sewer work, the project at between 8th and 9th on Bell Fountain has been completed. And probably sometime in August, the next project is at 9th and Buffalo. And that is a drainage issue as well. Earlier this year, they did a project at 25th and Bischoff, and that is completed. For those of you who live on the north side of the city, Citizens Energy Group is making quite an investment in the city of Beech Grove. On 11th Street between Detroit and Southern, they are installing a new water main. And why that's good for us is because when they're done, they're going to put a new road in. So, and that's about another 5-week project. And when they get done with that, they're going to move over onto 19th Street from Churchman to Cleveland, and they're going to do the exact same thing. And they're going to put a new main in because of its age. And then when they're done with that, they're going to move over on 13th Street. And you've seen some markings on the street already. But they've decided that they want to replace the water main on 13th Street as well. So we wish they would have let us know that before we paved the road. But that's all right. It's a blessing because they're going to put in a new base, and the road will actually be better than it is right now. But that will take a long time. So we're looking forward to that. We did ask the Citizens Energy to look at Royal Road, and we asked them to put a new water main in before the construction begins. So the road's tore out, it would be easy to do it then. They haven't gotten back with us, but and And also, you folks on 15th Street between Cleveland and Detroit, we asked the same thing for that road as well. We applied for a grant called Safe Routes to School, and that is a program for to install sidewalks so children can walk to school. And the city was awarded a little over $400,000 to do the project, and that's well underway. And I suspect by this fall, you'll see some construction movement on it, and that affects the middle school, South Grove Intermediate School, and then the high school as they come off of Churchman Avenue. There's no sidewalks there, and it's really dangerous for those kids who walk back and forth to the apartment complex. So that is going on, and you may have seen some people out in your neighborhood taking pictures of signs. The city was awarded almost $700,000 in a federal grant to do a sign inventory and replacement program. So every sign in the city of Beech Grove is going to be replaced. And that should take place late fall, early next spring. So that is, that's going to bode well for the city. And then this Friday, the Public Works Director and I will go in front of NDOT and ask, it's a program through the Metropolitan Planning Organization for alternative routes other than driving. And we have applied for an additional $1.2 million in sidewalk funding on Churchman Avenue from Emerson to Arlington. So this Friday we'll be out in Greenfield talking with NDOT, and I think that looks promising as well. So there's a great deal going on in the city of Beech Grove. But tonight I want to talk to you about St. Francis. I want to dispel a couple of rumors that are out there. One of the rumors is that Community Health Network is going to come in and take over the property. That is not true. Early on, when we were talking with St. Francis, there was 3 groups of people that they would not sell the hospital to. One of them was someone who competes with them, Section 8 housing, and groups who perform abortions. Those were the 3 groups that they would not sell to. So Community Health Network is not coming into Beech Grove at that building. St. Francis, as of now, has no intention to reopen the facility. That's out there. Another thing that's out there is the fact that we bought the property for $1. That's not accurate either. St. Francis Franciscan Alliance owns the property, and I've always said that they'll tell us what's going to happen when they sell the property. And I still believe that, and so those things are out there, but they're not accurate. So, as you know, St. Francis closed the facility in March of 2012. Within a month or so, we petitioned the Marion County Assessor's Office to start the process of collecting taxes. So the Assessor's Office did an assessment and charged them $2,012 for 2013. St. Francis appealed it because their claim was that they are still a non-for-profit and provide a medical service. The city's contention was, we agree you're a non-for-profit, but you no longer provide a medical service at that facility. So you should be like the rest of us, and we should be allowed to collect property taxes. They won the appeal for 2013. Now they have been assessed taxes 2013 and payable in 2014. So they have recently been given a tax bill. And just for your information, the Marion County Assessor has assessed the property, that complex, not Alverno, but that complex, at $23,763,600. That's what they claim is the value of that property. And the tax bill for 2014 on that parcel is $796,080.60. So we'll see what happens, but our contention is they are no longer a provider of a hospital, so they are no different than you or I. St. Francis is in a TIF district, so it would come under the control of the Redevelopment Commission. And a large chunk of the property taxes that are paid would be paid into the Redevelopment Commission. That TIF district, and if you can picture this, it will help you. It runs from Main Street north to Buffalo and from 13th over to 18th, including Marsh Grocery Store. So that is a total of 40 acres that's in that TIF district. 14 of it belongs to St. Francis. So that's what's going to happen when, if it ever gets redeveloped, they would have to start working with the RDC here in Beech Grove. Those would be the folks that they would sit down and talk with. And the president of the RDC is here tonight. Don, wave your hand. Some of you might have a question about what's going on across the street at the medical center. About 4 or 5 months ago, it was sold in what they call a short sale. The property is vacant, and it has been put on the market by a company called Colliers International. And I have had at least 3 meetings with those folks. There is a company that they don't know whether they want to lease it or buy it, but it would involve senior services for both buildings, and we are waiting on a financial plan to come across. And once that come across, and once we are given an idea of what they're going to do, then they know that they are going to have to get a hold of the Redevelopment Commission and then present what they would like to do to those folks. And that's how that works. So, and that's why we're doing some road work in that area, is to try to enhance that area.
Can you clarify which building you mean? Is it the one that's connected to St. Francis?
Yes. The 2 medical buildings there? Yeah. They're all empty right now. And so St. Francis has, and Frankie has been more engaged than I have, as there was 2 things going on since 2012. One was an environmental issue, and one was a trying to get them to do something with the property. So there was 4 groups of people who were very interested in the hospital. One group was called Americans Who Care. That stopped because of a financing issue. There was another group called Beech group who dealt in senior communities, and they had a wonderful plan to redevelop the property. They wanted the buildings removed, and then they were going to establish a senior complex, single story, for seniors who don't need any assistance, seniors who need assistance and memory loss. And that was, for whatever reason, denied by the Alliance. And then another group that Frankie was involved in, it, and it was Joe Whitsitt group. They had a similar idea, but he also wanted to establish regular homes that would blend into the neighborhood. And this was really, and Frankie could talk more about it, this was really a good idea. But it didn't happen. And then there was a 4th group who was going to come in and scrap everything out of the hospital, and we would go from there. So there has been 2 things going on since 2012, And both of them have been extremely difficult to deal with. And hopefully soon we'll hear something about the future of that property, other than an environmental issue. Because none of us here, and none of us who especially live around the buildings, want it to stay the way it is now. So with that, I think that's what I wanted to cover before we got started. And I just wanted to briefly talk about how this got started. Shortly after I became mayor, I started talking about stormwater. And there was several issues that were going on citywide concerning stormwater, and one of them was the infiltration of stormwater into the sanitary sewer system. And it becomes relevant because we are all paying for that. So we began working with Speedway gas station. We began working with ADM Milling. We began working with St. Francis, and there was a couple, Amtrak was another one, and there's been a couple more, and it'll come to me in a minute. But anyway, we were focusing on large contributors who may be, we'd take a look at what's going on. And we brought back a gentleman who had retired, we brought him back part-time, who had a wealth of knowledge about sanitary sewers. And we began working with St. Francis, and we thought maybe that they had a problem. So we began working with them, and it wasn't going anywhere. So I began working with our attorney, and then we decided that we would retain counsel to discuss this further. And one of the recommendations from our counsel, which is Baker and Daniels, was to hire a consultant who has a specialty in sanitary and storm sewers. And they recommended Shrewsbury and Associates. So we retained Shrewsbury and Associates. And their job was to go in and really take a look for us at what was going on. And maybe we didn't have a case, or maybe we did, I don't know. I don't have that expertise. But these folks do. So I don't know if you want to add anything to that right now.
Sure. What happened was there were these protracted negotiations going on even before we got Baker and Daniels, Fagery Baker Daniels involved. We tried to get this resolved. This was something that the mayor and I had addressed on a weekly basis. It was something that it was at the forefront when he took office. We were trying to get this dispute resolved. As the mayor said, and I think it's important to note, is we did not single St. Francis out. There were other people who we were able to work out agreements and there were no problems. It was just St. Francis. After a protracted process where we tried to get this resolved, short of litigation, we reached a breakdown. They didn't want to hear us as far as how our proposal to remedy this situation. So what we did is, since there were some environmental issues involved, at least I thought at the time, and I'm not an environmental lawyer, that's when I got Scott Chin from Fagery Baker Daniels. We retained that firm. They sent a demand letter back in January of 2014 asking to do an inspection. Under our ordinances, we can do an inspection. There was some pushback on that for a while, but eventually what we did is, after we retained Shrewsbury and Associates, we went on the property back on February 28th, and essentially we walked through the entire facility, and the folks from Shrewsbury made several observations. At that point, we went back to the attorneys from St. Francis. We started our negotiations again. We tried to get this resolved informally. Again, we had set some hard and fast deadlines because, again, this is a serious issue. We wanted to get this resolved, and for whatever reason, they didn't want to talk to us about some solutions we had to get this resolved. and essentially that's why we're sitting here today. We filed suit. We filed suit back on last Tuesday, and I don't know if you've had a chance to review. I think it's on the city's website. Essentially, we have 4 causes of action against the hospital. Number 1 are the impermissible flows. They're not paying. They're essentially discharging water into our sanitary sewer. The city's paying to treat that water. They're paying Citizens Energy. So that's been going on for as long as we know, at least since the mayor's been in office. So essentially, they're being unjustly enriched by not paying fees. So we want money for the treatment of the impermissible flows. Pursuant to the city's ordinance, St. Francis would have to pay a penalty of $1,000 per day, going back 2 to 3 years. Okay. We're also seeking our enforcement cost. To pay Shrewsbury and our legal expenses to enforce this process, which could be costly. We also had to install meters at that facility to get readings. There's also we have an allegation about a public and environmental nuisance. Under the Indiana statute, the city attorney has a private right of action against somebody who's creating an environmental nuisance. We can talk specifically about what we believe those environmental nuisances are, but I'm sure everybody is not happy about the way that facility looks and what it will look like in 2 years if we don't do anything about it. The 4th cause of action we have is unjust enrichment. Again, the hospital is being unjustly enriched by not paying fees. And again, the taxpayers of Beech Grove are paying to treat that water that's being discharged into our sanitary sewer. So that's essentially a summation of what the complaint says that we filed in Marion Superior Court.
I would like to hear from, and I'd like for you to hear from Shannon Killian, who is with Shrewsbury, about the process that they have went through so far. Shannon?
As Craig said, a site visit was done at the hospital on February 28th with some of my coworkers going through the hospital, looking at what was in the basement, what may be connected to the sanitary sewer. One of the items that we were told was that the drinking water has been turned off from the facility, so therefore there should be no flow in the sanitary sewers. But on observation in some of the manholes surrounding the hospital, there were obvious flows within that sanitary sewer. So on April 21st of this year, we went and installed 3 flow meters around the hospital. And the flow meters are installed in the 3 manholes where the St. Francis sanitary system connects to the City of Beech Grove system. And since that day, we've been monitoring the amount of flow that has been going through those flow meters. So once, like Craig was saying, we can get an idea of how much flow is going through on a daily basis and to get some basis of how much St. Francis may owe for that water that is flowing from their system into the City of Beech Grove. And that's, our main role to date is just collecting that information. And I guess in addition to that, we also installed a rain gauge. As Mayor Buckley said, one of the items that may be occurring is infiltration of stormwater into the sanitary sewers. The pipes at St. Francis are a material called vitrified clay pipe. It's an old piping system that's no longer used. The reason is when it gets old, it cracks. And when it cracks, it allows space for water, a high groundwater table, any of that water to flow into the sanitary system, which then is piped directly to our wastewater treatment plant. So we're looking at that being one of the potential issues. There's likely, as Mayor Buckley said, some groundwater infiltration going on. If you look at the water, it's very clear and it's not a typical sanitary flow.
So that is a very brief description of where we're at. We still have a lot of unanswered questions. We want to open it up, and we want to hear from you, your concerns, or if you have questions that we might be able to answer, especially the people who live around the property. So if you have questions or comments, please step up to the podium, and we'll try and answer whatever we can.
I really don't have any questions. I just have some information I'm going to pass out. Joe Whitsitt, he actually frequents Beech Grove. He goes to the Exine Shoe Store. He lives on the north side. He lived at 9th and Main Street for 15 years, and his heart is still really here in Beech Grove. And at Christmas time, he came into the store, and we were talking about St. Francis Hospital, and he thought it was a done deal that this thing was going to be possibly rehabbed and reused the way it is. And I said, no, that's all fallen through. So basically, Joe, on February 3rd, made a proposal, and that's what Joe's handing out right now. He wants to have the building torn down, except for the two largest buildings. If you look at the little map, the two oldest two buildings on 17th Street, he wants to rehab those into independent living. And then he wants to extend 14th, 15th, and 16th with new homes. This guy is the real deal. He's a big developer. If you want to Google Joe Whitsitt or TWG Construction, he's the one who just recently bought the Star News building downtown. He's putting luxury apartments there. That's just what he's doing. He has several that he already has in existence that he's built, and he's done. He's pretty big, and he made him a pretty good offer. But the hospital, they don't want to tear it down, folks. That they would rather sell it as it is to somebody to develop into something that possibly can't happen. I did talk to Bob Brody today at 5:25. He's the CFO of St. Francis. And what it is, they have a contract with somebody selling this building. And he's kind of tied into them he can't just shut this guy off yet because he'll still have to pay him. So Joe is probably the most viable option. But the real problem they're having is if they tear the building down, it's going to cost them more to tear it down in this fashion than to just tear it down because they have to preserve those two buildings. And that's part of the problem. But me and Dennis have been talking about this for a while. And a few people through here have known about this. But you can't catch chickens when they're hatched. It's not done. But this is a viable option. But also with Dennis, I've been working with everybody here is being affected by the water utility sale. The city of Indianapolis sold that for $450 million. But the city of Beech Grove, I'm trying real hard with DPW in Indianapolis to get as much of that money, that $450 million for us, because you are going to pay higher bills, which you already are. So they didn't buy the water utility from Indianapolis for giggles, man. They're going to get their $450 million back within the next 2 years because of the raises. I mean, right now your water bill went up $14, correct? In some cases, and it's going to go higher. So, but if you have any questions, I'll try to answer them. All right.
Can you just clarify some things that we can Google? How do you spell his last name?
Whitsitt, Whittsett. IBJ's done a bunch of stories on him. Indianapolis Star has. This guy's the real deal. I mean, I emailed Joe today. I said, Joe, are you still interested? He said, he's still interested. Because this all transcribed really around Christmas and February is when he made this proposal. But he's a neat guy. He really is. Just a regular Joe. He's a really good person. And he has he lived here at 9th and Main Street for 15 years in the Yellow House. But he's a good guy.
Is this the person that had a supposed development idea called Franciscan Place?
No.
No. Was that just a,
That was Americans Who Care.
okay.
Yeah.
Right. We had somebody actually wanting out of Atlanta, we heard, that wanted to put store building equipment or building supplies in one area there. I mean, actually construction equipment. And put a high-end flea market in. That was part of the people out of Atlanta. A winery at the same time. We all looked at this and said, what are you talking about? It was really mind-boggling what they wanted to do. So, any questions? Because if not, I'm sitting down. Go.
Well, I think it would be great to, save the history of Beech Grove with the existing part of the building. Is it a no deal for this developer if to just tear down the whole thing and?
I think it might be, because he's really, if you do, when you Google it, you'll see he takes these old buildings, guts them, from the inside out, and just makes them brand new.
So he sees a lot of value.
Oh, absolutely. And I asked him, what about the asbestos and did the EPA problems? Oh, that's not a problem. We run into that all the time. He's actually what's really weird, he's a tax attorney. And he became a developer in the last 15 years.
He's a great guy.
Yeah, Joe, you probably know him, yeah. He's probably your age, isn't he, Jeff?
What he's done before, I mean, the other properties
Mm-hmm.
that he's developed.
Yes, I think he actually used to live in your house. And he has, his wife Julie is a nurse, she runs.
Yeah, Julie.
Trips, so their kids graduated from Bowling. They're a wonderful family.
And the only reason he moved away is his kids ended up going to Cathedral, and he moved closer to Cathedral, and he lives off of 56th Street up in there. But he still comes down to the Grove. I mean, he buys at my place, he buys at Eckstein's. I think he even still goes to the meat market quite often. He's a neat guy. All of you people would love him. He's a good person. And his heart's there. He's not wanting to do it, he really wants to do it right. So,
I'm looking at about 55 homes.
55 to 57, I think, yeah.
So what's the type of home?
We're not sure of that. This is just a starting point. I know somebody said, well, they're going to be subsidized homing, this and that. I don't know. I have no clue.
And what's like the total investment he's thinking
About $25 million he's willing to put into this. Like I said, then we talked about the amount. He's at anywhere from 20 to 30 million. He estimated around 25. But I've been emailing Brody quite often, and we've talked a little bit. But today they had a board meeting. And as far as this water, I think it's a good idea that Mayor Buckley is suing him, because that lit a fire under their butt. Because they've already, I have a, let's see, I had somebody inside at the board meeting communicate with me during the board meeting. Got some information. We'll call you when Bob said he would get back with you also. Lawsuit, not a problem. Simple as that. They admit they're not in compliance. I mean, that was somebody within the board meeting that I was communicating with. So, but it is interesting.
So, I don't know if this is you or the mayor, then I live a block north of the hospital, and I saw the article about the gentleman water in the basement. I have the rubber stopper in my floor drain, and I've lived there for almost 30 years to keep the water from backing up. Are we talking this type of influence to our storm sewer system? That would, or sanitary, actually, it would be sanitary from the floor drain in the basement.
Well,
We just have started having that happen, and I live a block south of you on 15. This last rain, we had water everywhere. We've never had that happen.
Yeah, if you're going to have problems, Wednesday would have been the day. Because
But
for
we've never
Indianapolis,
had-
I had a lot of calls from my area. It covers a lot of Indianapolis. I had a lot of calls about the problems there. But you think about it, we have what did we get, 2 inches of rain in about an hour? 3 hours, that's when it's going to happen, if you're going to have a problem.
Well, but none of my neighbors, some of them didn't, and we've lived there for 12 years. I've never had water in my basement. It's rained more than 2 inches.
I don't know about
in
that.
a
That's
day,
Dennis's
so-
deal.
well, one of the things, and I got to really be careful. One of the things that has concerned me is the system is old. The system's probably been in there 50 years. It's probably all clay pipe. It can only hold so much product. And when it's full and there's still more coming on, it's got to go somewhere. And is St. Francis, is that property the contributors to that? I don't know. It may be. I don't know.
Well, with it, I'm sorry.
But what we have to think about is if St. Francis is going to redevelop or tear it down, redevelop it, or whatever, the city has to focus on the infrastructure around the property. and that would include roads and sewers. So we have to take a look at sewers in that area. We have to take a look at storm sewers in that area. Maybe some of that contributes to your problem at your house. I don't know. But it's a lot to take on, folks. And another thing I want to make clear is the city has no ill will against St. Francis or Franciscan Alliance. We work with those people every single day, and we'll continue to do that. The clerk just entered into an agreement for EAP again with St. Francis for another year. They provide an ambulance for our city. So the relationship is very important between the Franciscan Alliance and the city of Beech Grove, and it needs to be maintained. And it's my contention to do that. We have a disagreement, maybe, on stormwater. That's what this amounts to. And I think the quicker that we can get it resolved, the quicker that this administration can start working on infrastructure around that hospital and make it better for everybody. And that's all I've asked. I've asked that since the middle of 2012 and have really been actually snubbed. So
One thing that's important to note, and something that you folks need to be concerned about, is we've tried to form a partnership with St. Francis and try to come up with some creative solutions for that property. And some of them have been talked to you about that this evening, about some of the proposals. Some developers that we've came to St. Francis with and said, hey, these people are interested. And for whatever reason, they don't want to hear our input. One of the things we're concerned about is if they sell that property as is, and then an investor goes in there and goes belly up, that's going to affect all of us. That's going to affect you folks, and it's going to affect the city, because we're going to be stuck with that property with the apparent water problem they have there. So that's why we have a vested interest to make sure that something good goes in there and a reputable investor goes in there and does something with that property. And that's one of the reasons why we have been very proactive about wanting to be a part of the process, and we've been shoved out.
At one of the past meetings, you had, Mayor Buckley, you said St. Francis a year ago this June sent the city a letter that said they had no buyers and they were going to tear the property down. What changed since then that all of a sudden they aligned, or they still are beholden to this real estate agent, for the lack of a better word? I mean, they, as I understand it, they had already said they were going to tear the property down. They had no buyers.
I don't know. Jeff, I don't know.
I think he signed a contract with his real estate people. When I talked to Brody today, or tonight, he said he has to follow the contract he has with the realtor, and they're out of Chicago. And there's problems with the covenants of the building. They will not allow any kind of medical in it, and that's part of the problem with some of these buyers. That's part of it. That's holding up some things. They don't have the money.
So
These other buyers.
So it sounds like they entered into a deal with these people out of Chicago after they provided a letter saying we have nobody to buy it, we're going to tear it down.
I think they, Jeff, I think they signed this, because myself, Mayor Buckley, and we met with those folks, what, a year ago or 2 years ago here, the realtor. And that they just entered, they had to find somebody to go out there and push it, or try to market the facility back then.
But now they have interested parties, and so,
But the interested parties, they don't have any money that comes down to it. What I
like
get
this
is the money.
proposal you're talking about, this
This
person
guy does have
has
money.
the money, so can you fathom any kind of reason that they don't want to sell to him?
They don't want to tear it down.
It's
They don't
about
want
19 million, 10 to 19 million to take it down.
Because
That's.
they would have to tear down the parts that this person wants torn down.
Right.
They
He didn't
would-
want the tower, he didn't want the old office building.
How much did he offer, Frank, do you know?
I can't really say. I know, I've seen it.
Would it cost St. Francis more to tear it
Oh,
down,
absolutely.
to sell it to him?
That's why they would sell it as is to somebody, so they can walk away from it. We really don't want that, because we don't want another one on it.
How does does this property compare to the 2 or 3 others that they're already tearing down? One in Lafayette and one in,
There's one in Richmond right now they walked away from. They sold it to somebody, the guy gutted it for the metals and walked away from it. It was Reese Hospital. Google that one. It's Channel 13 did a story on that.
So who owns that hospital now?
I think the city of Richmond inherited it.
And that's what we want. We want to avoid that.
We want to avoid that.
And I'll tell you, Frankie, my aunt was in that hospital with cancer back in 2000. After that, it was sold. We went by it the other day.
It's still just,
It's a dump. I mean,
Yes.
I looked and I said, wow, that's the hospital my aunt was in. This hospital is overrun with, it's weeds, it's
windows
junk.
broken.
Yeah, it looks a hazard waiting to happen.
Does anybody would like to talk about the concerns with their property? We've heard a couple of interesting comments about sewer backups. Is there anybody else out there would like to speak about their property and their concerns?
With this long-time property value, I'm on 13th Street. I would like to stay there, retire, and pass the property on to my children. The Sisters of St. Benedict are down, I mean, a lot. It's our livelihood, it's our property, it's value. I mean, property value means a lot to Franciscan Network.
Anyone else have a question or comment or concern?
Yeah, we're on 14th, right next to the hospital, and this is something I would be behind 100%, to have homes and to save the historic part of the building. So I guess I would ask, like, is there anything that you feel like we could do?
Dennis, what do you think? I mean, should they all email Bob Brody and say we were in support of Joe Witze's thoughts?
Well,
You know, it's
I can't contact Franciscan Alliance. I can't contact Mr. Brody or Jay Brim or Sister Jane or Kevin Leahy because we're under litigation. They would have to talk about, or they would have to either speak with Craig or the folks at Baker and Daniels. I can't engage them now.
Can the town do that?
Well, sure.
Bob Brody.
But I too would obviously like to see something happen. I've been dealing with them since March of 2012. And now the weeds are growing up in the parking lot. And Joe?
How much input are the citizens actually going to have in on this? You know, the plan is a plan, but we've heard these plans before. How active are the citizens actually going to be involved? Is it just going to be a one-time thing, or is it going to be like Indianapolis does, several meetings with the neighborhoods, and then open it up to the city to come on out and say, this is what the plan is, and this is what we propose, and would they be open to changes?
I feel that, and I have stressed this with the people that are interested with the buildings across the street. If that's in a TIF district, you really should address the issue with the redevelopment commission. That would be the best way to do it, and however they want to handle it. I don't see this RDC as having any issue with bringing it out in the forefront and having meetings and discussing it with people. My role is to get them to come here, so, and then it's be passed off, and then I would move on to something else. But until then, we'll just continue to move forward. These projects, I never brought them out in the public because nothing was ever in concrete. Nothing was ever a sure thing. And, you know, when Americans Who Care had that announcement over with Beech Grove High School, I don't know if any of you remember that, but that was way too early. And I told him, I said, I wouldn't have done that because there was nothing in concrete that this was going to happen. The Witsit group, I met with Frankie and I, we've met with him 2 or 3 times, and it was really good. Craig and I met with the people from Benesh group. downtown Indianapolis probably 2 times. And it was a solid fundable project. I think it was like $14 million. But it was frustrating because it didn't happen. But you don't bring it out in the public and talk about it because you don't know if it's going to happen. And so I don't know. We're going to continue to look out for everybody that lives around there, and I apologize for the people who, I used to meet with a group of people, and I had to cancel the other day. And the reason I canceled was because I was getting ready to file an injunction against them, and I just didn't want to talk about it. So a lot of times you just can't say anything, and that's kind of bad sometimes. But Jim?
What would it cost for St. Francis to fix the problem? Is it tearing it down and fixing the plumbing and all that from the bottom up, or is it something that they could, even if they wanted to or were able to?
That's an engineering problem. I don't know.
There are multiple options available. We currently have not seen, like you can have a video run down the pipes. We have not done that to know what state the pipes are in, which really dictates what you can do. A lot of the pipes are actually exterior to the building within the parking lot. And so if you were to keep the hospital as it is now, you could go in and tear out the existing pipes and replace new pipes. Or if they're in such a state that they're still structurally sound, but they only have those smaller cracks in them that are allowing the water in, you could actually go in and install different types of linings that would stop the problem. So we have not gone through yet, and I'm not sure that we will, to actually go to that extent to see what shape the sanitary sewers are in. But there are options available, running wide range of prices just based off of what the pipes currently look like.
You guys have said that there is water still currently flowing through the sewers. Can you tell us what the difference is from when the hospital closed and what that water was to now?
I don't have that information, but that should be able to be gathered to some extent, look based off of their water usage. I think that's something that.
Can I talk about that?
Yes.
A report given to us back in 2013 was they turned all the water off to the property. So there should be no water flowing through the sanitary pipes. On a normal day at St. Francis, if they were open and everything and all the water was on, they would flow about 105,000 gallons of water a day out of the pipes. With the water turned off and nobody in the building, they were flowing 30,900 gallons of water a day. And that water was somewhere other than the sanitary water. And that water was downstream of the meter, so that water was being treated by the city of Beech, or by Citizens Energy, and the Citizens Energy was billing the city of Beech Grove for that. That's the contention. Now in Franciscan's defense, they have done work on the system, and it's down now. The last report that I received, it was 8 gallons a minute. That's equivalent to, in 1 year, 4.8 million gallons of water that we are treating and paying for. My contention is they should pay for that.
St. Francis pay a sewer bill?
Yes.
So they've been paying the sewer bill all along, or did they stop when they shut off the water?
No, they pay a sewer bill every month.
And it's based on their usage?
You know, they're commercial properties based on the number of gallons of water that that Citizens Energy delivers to the property.
So I guess my question is, if they're paying their sewer bill, theoretically, they're paying for their stormwater to even be treated, correct?
No,
So they weren't paying enough?
no, not even close. No.
I have a question. I don't think I understood maybe answer there. If their sewer bill is based on the amount of water
That goes through their meter.
that goes through their meter, but their meters, their water is shut off currently, right? But they're still currently paying a sewer bill?
If they are, it's very minimal.
Okay, because I thought, did you ask if they were still paying a sewer bill?
Yeah, I didn't know if we had figured in the usage, or I guess that was part of the lawsuit going back for previous excessive usage. And then I had another quick question as far as St. Francis goes. They can basically leave that building up as long as they want, right? So legally, I mean, do we have the ordinances to have a common nuisance, and eventually the city can move in and have it condemned? But then we'd have to have the money to tear it down and redevelop it?
Somebody asked me, we have a Department of Compliance who now will do enforcement of general nuisances. And when conditions get to the point at at that property, then they would go and inspect that property and then cite them into court, if that's how it's going to end up. And some of that is away from this lawsuit, and we discussed that earlier today. But someone asked me about, why doesn't the city do eminent domain and take it over? And I don't know if I would want to do that, because that's a liability I don't want. And that goes back to owning the property. The city could have bought the property for $1, but that would have been foolish, because we would have inherited a $20 million mess. So,
And we would have had to follow their covenants too, right?
Yes.
Part of the sale, so we couldn't allow medical.
yeah.
So, two questions. With the lawsuit, that has to, of course, we hope, impact any potential buyer. Are they then, would St. Francis then try and transfer the liability to the new owners? And the second question would be, do we know how long St. Francis is beholden to this real estate company to sell the property?
I do not know, Jeff.
The to your first question, usually when you sell a property, you assume liabilities of a property, but there's certain liabilities you can't assume, and if there's an environmental issue, St. Francis would be liable regardless of who owns that property. So it could go back to previous owners. In this case, there's only been one owner for 100 years. So by selling it to somebody, they can't necessarily get. If there's an environmental issue, they can't be discharged from any duties they may owe to the public. But
So part of the sale price, I mean, if we're really looking for the $1,000 a day going back however many years we're looking at, are they able to say, Jeff, you bought it, so now you're responsible for the back cost, if you will, the back expenses?
I don't know. To me, it wouldn't be any difference if you buy a house. If you buy a house, you have to disclose if there's issues.
right. I mean,
I'm just looking for additional things to discourage anyone from buying it. Are these things that would discourage people from buying it and tearing it? I mean, and St. Francis would benefit more by tearing it down.
well, I think if they would benefit from that financially, they would have done it already. Back to our fear, though, is that they sell this property as is to an unscrupulous buyer or a buyer who is insolvent, and then that they go bankrupt, and the city forecloses, and we get for liens, and we inherit that property, and then we, like the mayor said, we're sitting on a millions of dollars worth of structural improvements that need to be made for that property can ever be used. That's the fear, and that's why we tried to form this partnership with St. Francis, so we can come up with some solutions and some good people who will come in there and redevelop that property and do something that's good for the city. And so far, that's been to no avail.
Thanks for what you've done to this point.
I just had a question. Do you think that St. Francis possibly being privately owned business does not maybe appreciate the fact of government coming in and trying to, people probably aren't gonna like me saying this, but trying to force their way into St. Francis business. What they're trying to do with that property, do you think that's possible, Craig? That's my first question. And number two is, does Indiana not have any state laws that holds a business responsible when they build these buildings and then leave them or close or whatever to do something with them? Are there any state laws that govern that?
Yes, and that's one of the things we've alleged in the complaint. Under Title 33, like I was saying earlier, the city attorney has a prior right of action for any public nuisance, and that's one of the allegations, is that our contention is based on the condition of that facility and where it's headed, it's a public nuisance. And under the public nuisance statute, we can get reimbursement of any costs and attorney fees. Your first question, I'm not sure if I understood. I think I know it. Can you?
I'm wondering if they don't, you're saying they won't even negotiate with you guys, or won't talk to you guys, or won't include you in on anything. And I'm wondering, because they're a private business, if they feel like they don't have to, basically, or it's not your business, it's their business, it's their property. Do you think they feel that way?
If they do, I think everybody in this room should be troubled by that. Because are they a private business? Yes, they are. But as a Catholic, a cradle Catholic, I think they have a responsibility to this community for what this community's done for them, to act responsibly on that property. And that's what part of this is all about.
I would offer that before we all got together, the mayor started having these meetings with the neighbors, before I even knew this was happening, I sent an email to Mr. Brody and asked him, as a neighbor, could you please let me know 0.0 response, nothing. So I don't think it's government scaring them off. I think it's answering the hard questions that scare them off.
Joe?
Two questions. What's the city's plan for fire protection over there if the water's all shut off? I mean, are we able to turn the water back on if we have a fire for the sprinkler system, or?
I can't.
I know that they've had some runs over there. I think that they've got.
Fire watch right now?
Pardon me?
Yes.
I know they've got 2 security people there all the time.
Yes. Do you know how they would handle a building like that as far as to stay up to code?
That part I'm not sure about, where the water is turned off.
I think one of their arguments would be that they don't have a duty to keep it up anymore because there's nobody in it. I think that might be one of the arguments that they would present. I don't know.
The second question is, does the city have the legal power to block a sale if one of these junkers wanted to buy it, just to strip it out and walk away?
We do
The
not.
sale would have to be approved by the city,
It does not.
but wouldn't they have to change the zoning or whatever possibly?
For if they wanted to change the usage, potentially yes. But we don't have any power to intervene in and we can, in essence, we don't have the power to say we don't want this investor ABC to be the people that come in and invest in this property. And again, that's why we've tried to have this dialogue with them, so we get a good group in there that'll do something good for that property. Yeah, as you know, it's a premier plot of real estate in the city, and that dialogue hasn't happened. At least it's happened on our end.
Something you need to think about, Reese Hospital in Richmond was sold to a developer. The developer was from the East Coast, gutted it for its metals, and left. They had a grandiose idea. That didn't happen. Now see what you got. That's what we don't want. We want this plan. I mean, you might have a question of what kind of, it's going to be independent living, I understand. We haven't gotten that far.
Did Franciscan get paid for that property?
Pardon me?
Did Franciscan get paid for that property?
Franciscans.
Is that who you're talking
Oh,
about?
Reese Hospital, that's a whole different entity. That's
Oh,
Reese.
it's not
Reese is
Franciscan.
they're in Richmond.
owns it?
Channel 13 did a story on it. They built a new hospital 5 miles away. Same
Who owns
thing.
it?
I don't know, Reese Hospital?
Oh, I thought,
No, it wasn't
I'm
Francis
sorry,
State
I
Network.
This is
misunderstood
all
that. I
within-
thought you meant.
It's the
Francis
same
State.
scenario that can happen here. Basically is what we're trying to say.
Well, what about contacting our state rep, Cindy Kirkhofer, who's an employee of St. Francis, and she is our state representative. How about we should all
Yeah.
start feeding the pipeline and start, voicing our complaints to our state representative? We did.
I talked to Cindy today too, and Cindy thought Wolfwood was still buying a building, so she wasn't informed, but she's been busy. So she doesn't understand. And I did tell her a little bit about this, but Cindy didn't know.
And she also lives at Beech Grove,
She
right?
lives also in Beech Grove, right?
Don?
One quick thought for everybody is, one, St. Francis is not beholden to Beech Grove. They will do what makes business sense to them. If it's selling it to a scrap heap, they'll do it. But my question is, should we as a city, RDC2, not start looking forward, i.e. kind of like how we dealt with the GM plant that closed over on the near west side, and see about maybe starting to think about how we can get federal grants and stuff, because if it does become our problem, just like the women's hospital, it took the city of Indianapolis a while to get the money to tear it down. And I mean, realistically, if you look at St. Francis, it's a hospital that they're saying can't be sold as a hospital. It's not like, they're limiting who can buy it and for what for. And so if it's a hospital, but you're gonna turn it into something else, it's not gonna work as that. It's designed for a hospital. It will cost a lot of money, and as the mayor's pointed out, the piping's bad in it. It's old. I mean, it is an obsolete facility. That's why St. Francis left. So, I mean, I guess my thought is, we need to start being proactive and working with Mr. Mascari, the city of Indianapolis, our state reps, and even the federal government to start figuring out a line of funding. So, because here's the thing, if St. Francis doesn't pay their tax bill, as we've talked about, theoretically, we could foreclose on the property for taxes, correct? So, it would, and I mean, if they don't pay their taxes, we should let them have it, but then again, we inherit something that's gonna cost us $20 million to tear down. The city doesn't have it.
Well, maybe the redevelopment commission can put out a call for what they call the RFPs for ideas on how to redevelop the project, the property.
I don't have a problem with that, Mr. Mayor. My thing is, if St. Francis is gonna limit, if they're not willing to tear it down, and they're gonna so limit the scope of who can buy it and what for, I mean, you're taking a lot of people out of the market, because they could have sold it as a hospital right away. And I mean, my problem is with St. Francis is, I know they've been loyal to Beech Grove, but I also know they have left Beech Grove. They have not been a good neighbor, and if you look at the parking lot and that thing, I mean, the people that live around it are looking at an eyesore, and I haven't seen anybody from St. Francis say, you know what? We'll kill these weeds in the parking lot to make it look better. We'll make sure the landscaping around it at least looks good. They're not being a good neighbor, and they're hurting the property values of people, I mean, many that work there and walk to that hospital. So, I mean, honestly, I hope we are getting them on compliance and all this stuff. And, maybe we need to make our voices a little louder and work within the local media to show what a bad neighbor St. Francis is being, because, I mean, they make a lot of money. I've paid them a lot of money, and we all have, and they are not being a good neighbor. And, I hope we stick them on the stormwater drainage, but, I mean, we need to be realistic. St. Francis, I have a feeling, will leave that thing until they depreciate it off the books and taxes, or they'll just walk away from it, let's say owe the city $1.5 million in taxes, and say it's your problem now. And that's the way businesses like that operate nowadays. There's no loyalty, so.
Do we know the history of Francis and Alliance? Do they typically do that? Is that something they typically do?
I thought, as Craig said, I thought they were a Catholic organization.
They are.
And again, I thought serving the poor, which St. Francis over here did very well. Problem is, the poor don't pay as well for people out in Franklin Township. There's a lot more Medicaid patients here, and those take a lot longer to pay off. So we'll move a little further south and deal with a better class of poor. And I feel like St. Francis has done. So I think we need to keep their feet to the fire, but I think we also need to be forward-looking in that we need to get money, start looking for sources of revenue, so that when they do walk out on us and leave us with that thing, we can get it tore down and redeveloped.
I don't want to think that way, Don. I think they've been a good corporate citizen of Beech Grove for a long time, and I'm not really sure the makeup of the people that work there are like that. So I'm going to just move down the road and try to resolve this environmental issue, and maybe working with you folks, we can get this redeveloped. I'm not going to give up on those folks. Yes?
To correct a prior point that someone made, St. Francis didn't leave Beech Grove because the building was old. St. Francis left Beech Grove because the neighbors didn't want us to expand around the hospital. So we had to go south and purchase land for future use.
That's a point, but I'm just not going to belittle it, because I'm not going to go back before the first day of 2012. I just want to move on and try to get these things worked out so everybody can benefit. I'd rather focus on that than what happened 5 years ago, because it's not going to do any good. Yes?
Concerning the environmental concerns that Shrewsbury and Associates is working on, has your work been only limited to the sewage and drainage problem, or have you looked at any other environmental concerns within the building itself?
We've only been looking at the potential infiltration into the sanitary sewer system.
Okay. And is there any known environmental issues already for anyone up there about the building itself? You know, potential air pollution, any environmental problems that are known, is there?
I'll add one more comment. We did run some standard tests on the water that is coming into the sanitary system, just to see if it had any contaminants that we should be concerned about. The results, there's some heavy metals, but they are very consistent with what you typically see in urban groundwater. So there's nothing, at least in those samples, that were of concern, but that doesn't speak to anything else within the hospital grounds. I'm just speaking for those 3 points where we sampled from it and what we found there.
Joe?
As far as the zoning goes, they figured that out a long time ago, just about anything going there, really. I mean, the way that they got that done back when they put that into the TIF, and we'd be wasting money to plan for something that we don't even own. That's kind of shooting yourself in the foot right there. Because if it, like I said, if it'd still be a hospital, they'd be a hospital. You know, they just kind of outgrew the place, and if it was still viable, they'd have something in there. You know, no matter what, that only makes sense, dollar cent wise. You know, I'm not sticking up for them, I'm just kind of looking at all the sides onto it. I'm just wondering who's gonna come in there and how active the citizens around here is gonna be, because I live within one block of it. I walk out and see it every day. I can walk to it in less than 2 minutes. So, you know, those fields popping up and everything else, I walk my dog across that lot and watch it get tore down. Yeah, something needs to be done, but let's don't cut our nose off to spite the rest of ourselves either.
Because Alverno will stay, I mean, that's a permanent part there. Alverno is established in it, and that's part of the Franciscan network, the computer, right, so.
They're expanding on it.
Well, they're talking about it, but I think when I was up in Mishawaka the last time with the folks, they said that they were going to stay there. But we'll see. You know, we'll see. Any other questions or comments? Yes?
Last month at the safety meeting, it was brought up that in the dumpsters by the emergency side of St. Francis, that there were visible hazmat trash bags. And the new compliance officer was at our meeting, and he said that he would check into it. And that concerns me, just because, I mean, if there's hazmat coming out of there, why is that? It's been closed for so long, and does that affect anything else?
I don't know, but if somebody took a picture of that, can we have a copy, please?
I took the picture today. I saw 5 biohazard bags sitting out there, and I took them to the fire department. That was the only place I thought to go, and they said they'd get security on it. I'll see if I still have the pictures or not.
If you do, can we have a copy, please? Any other questions or comments? Yes?
I just have one. Going forward, I just have
happened to find out about this meeting, like kind of at the last minute. I don't live right exactly around there, but I live in Beech Grove, which I think it concerns all of us that are in Beech Grove. What is the best way to keep up to date on all this information?
There's a couple things. One is you can go to beechgrove.com, and it's on there, or you can call here at City Hall, or you can come in. I don't know what else.
I mean, on beechgrove.com, do we go to City News, or do we go to,
You can go to the mayor's desk, or you can go to,
just go to the homepage, it's on the
Yeah.
right-hand side, all the meetings that are being held.
yes.
We also used to seem to have notice of meetings, like on the football field, like, it used to be signs saying we were having a town hall meeting at this time on this date. I feel like that doesn't exist anymore. Okay, well, can we put signs somewhere else? I don't know, that's ridiculous that the school wouldn't allow that. It's a town thing. Yeah.
I think I don't sell the school short. I think they would allow it if you ask. If we asked them, I think they would allow it to happen.
I understand not having other advertising and things, but if it's a town hall meeting, I would think that would be allowed.
Yeah, I think they would. All right, Barb.
Can I make a comment? I work at the recorder's office, and I do see a lot of out-of-state companies and people that buy property unseen and know nothing about that property. And they'll buy it for a cheap price, they'll buy it tax property sale, surplus sales, or whatever. And it's not a very good idea. I mean, half the time they don't do nothing with it. So we do have to pay attention. Every once in a while, I do see something about St. Francis, but St. Francis is so large. Each property is different, but I would recommend to be careful who gets the property, because we don't know who's going to get it.
All right. Any other questions or comments? If not, thank you very much for coming tonight.